Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
You don't technically need this car. You say that out loud to yourself. You say, I have no space. You say, I'm just looking. Then you click. Then you zoom in on photo number 87 and whisper, oh no. Then you text a friend, the one who always enables you. You say to yourself, this is the last one, knowing it is not. You don't need this car. But maybe, just maybe, this car needs you. Bring a trailer. It's never just a car.
This October, the wrong station celebrates a decade of dread. You can read the show notes to discover terrible new ways to celebrate with us. Today's episode, Old Stuff, is written by Alexander Saxton and performed by Anthony Botelho. Down at the bottom of the street where I used to live, there was a man who sometimes rolled out a canvas sheet and sold little objects. Bits of glass or tarnished brass, or little paintings or cameos in their delicate frames. He was an older man. You might be forgiven for thinking he was homeless, based on the shabbiness of his clothes and the tired way his eyes sought yours as you passed. But I think he lived in one of those old, big Victorian houses on the leafy side streets. In those days, it was still possible to be desperate and poor while living amid the dust and grimed-up glass and crumbling brick of a house worth more than a lifetime's work, if you knew how to sell, or how to survive when it was gone. Over the years I lived in that neighborhood, I noticed the quality of his wares improved. At first, he only sold small things, broken things, old beige appliances that could still work if you knew how to replace a power cord, or moth-eaten woolens that would last decades if you knew how to darn the holes. I'd bought a sweater from him once, chunky and teal, and spoken briefly with him on that occasion, so we vaguely knew each other. From time to time, I'd wear my mended sweater around the neighborhood, and we'd catch each other's eye and share a nod, knowing something invisible connected us. But over time, the broken things sold out, and his canvas sheet filled up with objects that were old but perfectly sound. Picture frames of gilded brass, uncracked mirrors, old wool sweaters that had been guarded from the moths, and cedar chests. Once I stopped to study an old coffee grinder, like the one my parents had used when I was young. It was robin red. I asked, "Are you downsizing?" "Something like that." He gave me a sad little smile. "Too many things in my old house. Too much memory." And maybe that seems like a silly thing to say about a coffee grinder. But I understood. The one in my hands put me back on the floor of my parents' kitchen on a spring morning in 1998, with the smell of fresh grounds, and the burble of the perk, and the prickle of rain droplets on the glass, and the broad leaves of the maple tree outside. "Will you take $5 for this?" He said, "It's yours." I still have it in my cupboard now. It would have been kind of me to ask the old man's name, but I never did. I'm somewhat anxious. I don't like to get drawn into conversation with strangers. I could be small. One afternoon in late summer, I stopped beside the canvas because there was a teal glass vase, long and narrow, that could hold a single stem of baby's breath. It was something I knew immediately my wife would love. "It matches your sweater," the old man told me. He remembered, even though I was wearing a t-shirt that day. "It was my wife's favorite color," he went on. "That glass was hers, and that old sweater was an anniversary gift. I don't remember which one. He was always a little big on me, though." He smiled. His teeth weren't great. "You take better care of it than I did, though. You fixed the holes. I only ever made them." I didn't know what to say to that. I felt a bit of silly pride and a bit of embarrassment at his admission of failure. I steered back to the vase. "My wife collects little pieces like this," I said. "She likes to grow single stems of whatever cuttings her friends give her, or else fills them with baby's breath and puts them out in the middle of all the green." A bit of pain touched the edges of his smile. "My wife loved baby's breath as well." I came so close to asking what happened with her or them. But like I said, I'm sometimes small. I bought the vase, paid not enough, and went on. It's still sitting, full of baby's breath beside the windowsill. One afternoon, under light rain at the end of fall, I saw that all the objects on his tarp were made from gold. Necklaces, rings, old brooches, some scuffed, some scratched, but all of them resting heavy in the cloth. There weren't many of them, 5 or 6 pieces, that was all, and people rushed back and forth in the rain, not seeing. He sat on his overturned bucket beside the little treasures with his head hung down. Of course, you'd assume they were cheap pieces of old costume jewelry or something. But when you bent, you'd see the little stamp on the gold inside. 10 carat, 12, or more. "Why are you selling these?" I asked. He laughed. "Well, I don't wear them. You should take them somewhere. Nobody's going to pay you what they're worth out here. If I take them somewhere, they'll just be melted down. Better someone else should wear them." He leaned forward. "Here, take this one for your wife. It'll match your sweater when she wears it." The ring was white gold, with a teal emerald like a teardrop. I laughed. "I can't afford to buy this." "How much you have on you?" Like $50? "I'll take it," he said. "Come on, the gold alone's worth 5 times that. If it's real." "It's real." "Come on," he said. "I want you to have it." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." "Give it to her for Christmas, will you?" I took the ring, convinced myself it was just some old costume piece. But we had a price a few years ago. Turns out $500 for the gold, another $7 for the stone. My wife still wears it on special occasions, and its color suits her very well. One afternoon in January, the two-faced month, I found his cold gray canvas laid out in the rock salt and slush, and he himself huddled on his bucket with his back to a brown snowdrift. It was bitterly cold, and the streets were all empty except for him. The things he was selling that day were all bunged up in heavy greenish jars. It was difficult to tell what I was looking at through the thick of glass and fluid. Strange, pale shapes were floating in the murk, pitted and veined, and sometimes seeming almost live. Over the smell of cold, you could catch a whiff of formalin. I crouched down to look closer. "What are these?" He gave a papery laugh. "They're about all I've got left." I put my eye to the glass, intrigued. There was some mystery at work. He and his wife had been biologists, maybe, or maybe procurers for some carnival geek show in the 70s. I imagined them roaming the countryside together in a wood-paneled car, seeking out calf fetuses deformed enough to keep in jars. Then, the thing in the glass fell into focus, and I thought I recognized it. A bad feeling came over me. I glanced down the row, watching the jars all slowly wrap themselves in hoarfrost. Are these what I think they are? Well, I guess so, he said. You can't sell these. You need them. They're doing me no good. I figure someone else should have them. He had an old coat around him, too thin for the weather, and when he raised his hands to blow warm air into them, that coat fell open, and I saw wide, rusty stains on the old threadbare sweater underneath. For a moment, I could do nothing. I was frozen, floating in formalin. He picked up one of the jars and pressed it into my hands. The glass was cold. Please, he said. It's just a couple of bucks. I want you to have it. His old and half-dead liver drifted lazily behind the glass. I stared down in dismay, and he patted my arm and smiled, and then fell forward into the other jars. When the ambulance took him and left me alone, I stood adrift in the cold for a couple minutes, not sure what to do. It was very cold. In the end, I left a crumpled 20 underneath his kidney jar and took the liver home. We still have it in our basement. My wife doesn't let me keep it out among the vases and the baby's breath. Sometimes I forget about the jar for months on end. But then there will come a spring morning, and I'll be standing in the kitchen, grinding coffee. I'll sit down for a moment by the window, hearing the rain on the glass and the burble of the perk. I'll realize I'm warm in my teal sweater. I'm loved. I'm cared for. After that, I'll go down to the basement, bring up that jar of greenish glass, and sit with it for a while. Its weight heavy on my lap as I look out at the rainy street. And I'll wonder why I feel so sad. The Wrong Station is made possible with the generous support of our listeners on Patreon. Join us today at patreon.com/The Wrong Station for bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes content, ad-free listening, and additional goodies celebrating our decade of dread. The Wrong Station is co-produced by Alexander Saxton, Anthony Botelho, and Jacob Duarte Spiel, with music composed and performed by Alon Citrin, and arranged for the viola and performed by Viola Schmidt. You can follow us on social media at The Wrong Station, or email us at thewrongstation@gmail.com. And until next time, thank you for listening.